Buonasera, my friends. I am Leonardo da Vinci, and today we will explore one of my paintings. How I turned a good work of art into a work of genius, and how you can do the same. I will do this by revealing my own process, revisions, and my stubborn search for perfection. You may think The Virgin and Child with Saint Anne is the story of one painting. It is not. It is the story of many drawings, a celebrated cartoon, not that kind of a cartoon, abandoned solutions, and a final decision to change something that already worked into something even greater. Stay with me to the end. I will show you the largely unseen final step. And I hope you will see that the courage to change what is already good is something you too can practice. Before we examine the painting itself, let me explain some brief background. I painted the Virgin and Child with Saint Anne around 1510, if I remember correctly. I am certain it was between 1501 and 1519. It was so long ago. Well, it was King Louis XII who commissioned the piece shortly after the birth of his daughter, who was also named Anne. Why a French king was appointed as the Duke of Milan, an Italian city-state, is an interesting discussion, no? But one for a different time, I think. Interesting times. In any case, I feel like this painting was never completely finished. It was still in my possession at the end of my life, along with a few others you might recognize. How big is this painting, you ask? It is one of my biggest paintings, painted on wood and oil paint. When I first started creating the concept of the Saint Anne painting, it was not purely to make a beautiful piece of art. It was created from theology, politics, and devotion. In the late 15th century, the iconography of Saint Anne, the mother of the Virgin, was, as you might say, going viral, representing the Immaculate Conception and the very origins of purity and grace in humankind. Patrons wanted images that could contain these ideas: kings, queens, cardinals, and friars, cardinals and friars, si, scusi, all wanted paintings that could embody doctrine without appearing cold or scholastic. I could do just this by combining three generations, Anne, Mary, and Christ Child, into one living organism full of tenderness and destiny. In my time, painters like Masaccio had already represented Anne, Mary, and the Child in ordered frontal constructions, as in his Sant'Anna Materza. It was solemn and powerful. But I wanted more: movement, psychological depth, and a sense that divine history unfolds through the gestures of normal human bodies. Before any brush touched the panel, I lived with the problem on paper. I filled sheets with studies of heads, hands, draperies, and rocky landscapes. I asked myself, how can three figures share one space and one meaning without becoming a simple stack of bodies? I began to see them as a pyramid, Anne at the apex, Mary at the center, Christ at the base, flowing into the Lamb. In a very unusual structure, I had Mary sitting on her mother's lap. The bodies would twist, turn, and overlap, but always resolve into unity. Let us look first at the Christ child and the Lamb. Jesus slips from his mother's grasp to embrace the Lamb. The Lamb is the Agnus Dei, the symbol of his future passion and crucifixion. His embrace signifies his voluntary acceptance of his fate, while Mary's restraint creates the central dramatic tension of the work. She is seated precariously on Anne's lap. I thought this would emphasize their biological and spiritual lineage. Remember the importance of representing the Immaculate Conception. Mary reaches out to restrain Jesus, representing the maternal instinct to protect her child from his sacrificial destiny. Unlike some other non-traditional elements I included, I painted her wearing the traditional blue and red garments associated with the Virgin Mary. Blue representing divine purity and royalty, and contrasting red representing human passion and suffering. Look at Anne, Mary's mother. She smiles with that enigmatic calm that you see also in another of my women. I also chose to paint Saint Anne appearing as close to the same age as her daughter. She sits at the apex of the pyramid, functioning as the theological anchor. She represents the Church and the divine plan. Her body supports Mary physically. Her acceptance supports Mary spiritually. She witnesses the events without interfering, accepting the necessity of the Passion. Let us not ignore the background. And how could we, as it features these jagged, primordial mountains dissolving into a blue haze? This utilizes the painting techniques of atmospheric perspective and sfumato, a smoky blending of tones to create depth. The landscape is not just a backdrop, but suggests the geological vastness of creation, reinforcing the timeless nature of Christ's sacrifice. The composition becomes a single, rounded movement, a spiraling act of acceptance. Christ clings to his future sacrifice. Mary hesitates, yet allows, and witnesses and consents. I was not the only one to paint these subjects. It was quite popular in this time, you know. One of my contemporaries, Michelangelo, created his own version of the Virgin and Child using sculpture. In his relief, the Christ child recoils from a bird, a goldfinch, another symbol of the Passion, and throws himself back into Mary's lap. It is a powerful idea. The child instinctively rejects his future suffering. Where my Christ embraces the Lamb, his Christ turns away from the sign of death. Raphael, younger and full of promise, also studied our works. In his Bridgewater Madonna, he takes the twisting child and the tender intimacy of mother and child and arranges them with extraordinary clarity and balance. He removes Anne, simplifying the theology to concentrate on the immediate bond between Mary and Jesus. These men found their answers. Michelangelo in muscular tension and dramatic recoil. Raphael in pure harmony and grace. My aim in the Virgin and Child with Saint Anne was different, to bind theological depth and psychological and emotional complexity in a single flowing form. But time is a cruel collaborator. Varnish darkens, glazes sink, pigments change. In your time, my painting has been cleaned, but not without a protest. Some experts feared that removing the yellowed varnish stripped away the delicate glazes that gave my figures their softness and mystery. Others argued that the cleaning revealed the original luminosity of Mary's robe and the landscape, bringing you closer to what I intended. In 2008, a specialist removed the grand painting from a wall of the Louvre and made a most unexpected discovery. He noticed some faint, curious markings on the back of the panel. Further examination revealed more of my sketches: a horse's head, a skull, even a child with a lamb. Sound familiar? Traces of my restless search, even on the reverse of the wood. These are reminders that art is not a single act, but a long conversation between the mind, the hand, and the material. I have enjoyed my journey with you, my friends, and now I will show you the final hidden step I took before my final painting: the courage to change what is already good. A cartoon is a drawing we make. Not that kind of a cartoon. A drawing we make in a preparation for a large painting or a mural. I would like to show you my cartoon of the Virgin and Child with Saint Anne. See if you can spot the differences between it and my painting. In the cartoon, John the Baptist replaces the lamb and plays a strong role. He connects the intimate family scene to the broader story of prophecy and mission. Yet I felt his presence also divides the focus. The eye travels between the two children, comparing them almost as if the picture is about them as a pair. For a moment, the grand theological line from Anne to Mary to Christ is lessened by a more horizontal interest: two boys meeting. In the version without John, the composition pushes the viewer's focus to Mary in the center. I also painted her with brighter and less shadow than the other figures to help this focus. Or did I just never finish painting the shadows? Well, speaking of shadows, my friends, this is also one of my finest examples of chiaroscuro. This is the use of light and dark. I use my studies of optics, anatomy, and perspective, combine and incorporate all this in my art to create stunning realism and humanism. The upward pointing hand of Anne is another problem. It is a common gesture in Renaissance paintings. It is clear, but perhaps too clear. It tells you, look there to heaven. But in doing so, it becomes an illustration of doctrine more than an organic part of the emotional drama. Gesture and feeling are not yet one. The more I studied the theme, the more I wanted every element, the gesture, the gaze, the animal, the landscape, to speak of the same truth, the acceptance of the passion, the mysterious joy, the great sorrow of a mother who knows her child is destined to suffer. Consider my path. I studied the subject through doctrine, preaching, and popular devotion to Saint Anne and the Immaculate Conception. I observed mothers and children, old women and young, rocks, clouds, animals. I built an intelligent composition in the cartoon, admired, coherent, and effective. Then I stepped back and lived with this solution long enough to see where it still fell short of the deepest truth I wanted to express. Then came the crucial step. I did not stop. I removed John the Baptist, though he was meaningful. I removed Anne's pointing finger, though it was clear. I added the lamb, though it complicated the scene. I twisted the bodies further, risking instability to achieve a more unified flow of gesture and meaning. By these changes, the scene shifts from a meeting of the prophets to Christ's direct embrace of his own destiny. Theology changes from a finger pointing upward to a grandmother's silent, knowing smile. The composition changes from a pyramid of bodies to a spiral of will, love, and sacrifice. You may not paint Madonnas or carve marble, but you face this choice every time you create. Whether you paint, write, act, or work on your business, you create. You create a first, a second, a ninth version. It works well. Others praise it. You feel the temptation to stop. Perhaps it is time to stop. Sometimes good enough truly is good enough. Perhaps you want more. At this moment, remember my Saint Anne. Remember that there was a cartoon on display and admired in Florence, beloved by the people, studied by great rivals. And yet, I changed it. To follow this path in your own work, study profoundly. Fill your mind and your sketches with possibilities. Observe the details and the larger picture. Consider other works. Build a first whole solution. Make your own cartoon. A version that stands on its own. Then step back. Live with it. Ask what it means, what it lacks. Where is it merely clever instead of necessary? Be ready to sacrifice. This can be a difficult one. Be prepared to remove even beautiful elements if they distract from the essential. Unify form and meaning. Ensure that every gesture, every detail serves the central idea. Genius, as we call it, is not a lightning bolt. It is simply the ability to find connections and the willingness to move one step further when others would stop. In The Virgin and Child with Saint Anne, this step is the passage from the cartoon to the painting, from a very good composition to one that binds doctrine and psychology and beauty in one beautiful movement. If you can do this in your own work, question the good solution, dare to change it, and seek deeper unity, then you too will know how to change a good work into something closer to genius. I am excited to see your creations. I bid thee comment below with what you would like to see next, or any questions for Leonardo. My friends, be curious. Did you know that you can hire Leonardo to present a workshop, give a lecture, draw or paint, or simply mingle at your event? See the link down below.